Welcome to another video. I can't believe this is the last wrap up of the year. Where did the year go? Literally insane. But for the last month of the year, I was about to say the last month of December. No. I read 11 books, which was 6 audiobooks, 3 physical books, and 2 ebooks. Yeah. And I did not read any manga. Oops. So first I will start talking about the physical books. I only read 1 Christmas book this December, which is unlike me, but I didn't like the one I read, so I didn't want to read anymore. And that was The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. So this book is about this woman who is like a freelance marketing person, and she gets hired by Ben for his company to do some marketing for them. And he finds out that she has nowhere to go for Christmas. And he's like, hey, my family has an inn and they shut it down for Christmas. And so it's just a family that stays there. Why don't you come home with me? You'll have a little Christmas vacation and then you can pretend to be my girlfriend because I always feel like the lone one out being single. And she's like, okay. And so, you know, like fake dating, you think that they're gonna fall in love, but she falls in love with his sister. And that premise sounded so good. I was so excited. And if I were to like sit down and tell you the plot points about this book, which I won't because spoilers, but like with my boyfriend, I was like literally being like, bop, 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 bop. Like these are all the things that are happening. It sounds really good and it sounds really funny and it sounds like a great book, and it just wasn't. It like had all the parts to make it a good book, but then the writing was just not boring, but just kind of stiff and stagnant. And it was like, it was trying, because it like had the plot points, but the way it was executed was just not there. It was robotic and a little uninteresting. And I just feel like the dialogue was just not how people talk, and not in a way where it's like, have you met a human? It was just like stiff. Like, I don't know. I just didn't really like it. I didn't really feel the chemistry between the characters, and it was extremely predictable, and not in the way that romance is normally predictable, where you're like, yeah, they're gonna end up together. It wasn't like that. It was just like, I knew every little thing that was gonna happen in the book, which was just, I don't know, like there should be a little bit of like side plots that you don't expect. And I don't know. I was not a fan of this book. It took me a long time to get through it. It did not make me feel Christmassy, and I already was struggling with feeling Christmassy this year. And yeah, just wasn't a fan, unfortunately. I don't even know if I decided on a rating for this. I did read some of it in a like Christmassy vlog that I did. 3 stars if I'm being generous, but honestly, it's probably lower. I just did not like this book. The next physical book I read in December was Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. This is the first book in the Throne of Glass series, but I did already read the prequel earlier this year, which is called The Assassin's Blade. Some people say to read it first, some people say to read it third. I read it first. I don't regret it because it made me like interested in the series. So basically, Throne of Glass is about this assassin named Selena. I still don't know how to pronounce her name, and I really should look that up. But her name is Selena, and she's an assassin, and at the start of this book, she is actually in like a prison camp, and the prince comes to get her, and he's like, I want you to compete in this, I don't know what to call it, not like a championship, like whatever. There's going to be 24 people competing to be the king's champion, and whoever wins gets to be his assassin, and then they get their freedom after that. So she is taken from this prison, and she is told, if you win, you'll work for him for 4 years and then you'll be free. If you lose, you'll go back to the prison or die, because some people die during these tests. That's what the book is about. It's about her training and going through these tests and, you know, getting to know the prince. And there's also a princess, not like related. She's a princess, but she's a princess from somewhere else, and she's visiting. So like, she has a plot line. There's a lot going on in this book, and I do feel like it was kind of slow at certain parts and kind of dragged a little bit, and I wasn't always super interested in what I was reading, but I was interested in it as a whole, so I wanted to keep going because I really do like the character Selena. And since I read the prequel first, even though that was written after this was her first book she wrote, I think, and she was quite young when she wrote it. And even just in like 2 books, you can like see the growth. Like, I can tell that this was written before the prequel, and like I can tell that her writing improved a lot in between those books, which makes me excited for the rest of the series to see like how far, like how much she improves through the rest of the series. And yeah, so I didn't like this book as much as I liked Assassin's Blade, but I'm still really interested in it and very excited to continue the series. And I did really enjoy it, but I think I gave Assassin's Blade 4.5, and I gave this one 4 stars, but I am glad I read it, and I'm excited to read the next one. And the last physical book I read of the month, of the year, like I finished this with 30 minutes to spare before midnight last night, was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is a book that I've had for a couple years. I've been wanting to read because it's Sarah Caroli's like one of her top books ever. This is about this girl named Macy, and her mom passes away from cancer when she's young, and she left her dad like a list of like kind of like how to raise her. And one of the items was, when Macy's a teenager, she comes home from school upset, take her away for like a retreat. And so when she turns 13, her dad buys like a weekend home in this like small town. And next door is this guy named Elliot. And so they, you know, strike up a friendship, which ends up being like an everything ship. Like they're everything to each other. And, you know, they see each other like every weekend on the summer breaks. Like they spend a lot of time together over their like adolescence, like from like 13 to 18. And so they eventually date. And something happens between them where they don't speak for 11 years until they run into each other again. And then they reconnect. And so it's told in dual timelines. You get them growing up together and then them reconnecting now as adults. And I was really liking this book for most of it. Like I was loving it and I was breezing through it. And part of that was I was trying to finish it before the end of the year because I actually started this Monday night and the year ended Tuesday night. But I was enjoying it. Like it actually wasn't hard. I like started it hoping I could finish it, but then I was like, you know, this is a 400-page book. Like, I don't know if I can finish this in 24 hours when I'm working, you know. But it was actually so easy to read. I read 167 pages Monday night in one sitting. I was really, really loving it. I got up Tuesday and read some before work. Like, I got home from work and I was reading it. We actually had a New Year's Eve party to go to. So I was reading it in the car while my boyfriend drove. Like, I was really into it. I was like, yeah, I'm totally gonna finish this because I love it and I don't even have to like force myself to read it. And then we get to the reveal of like why they stopped talking. And it is a storyline I do not like in books or any media. It's something that I don't like, and it kind of ruined the book for me. And there were more than one reason that they stopped talking. Like there was things that happened to both of them, whatever. But like this one thing is something I really, really don't like reading in books, and it ruined the book for me, and it kind of ruined the couple for me because I was really rooting for them and I really loved them together. And then after I found out this thing had happened, I was like, eh. And I think because of how much I love them as a couple and how much I was loving this book, it like made that storyline so much worse for me than it normally does, to the point where I was going to give this book 5 stars and I think I want to give it 4 stars now. It deducted a whole star rating. But yeah, I think overall I still really like this book. It's just that plot line is not for me. But I did read this book and Throne of Glass in a vlog where I was trying to read some of my 10 before the end. So you can see my reactions if you want to for these 2 books in that vlog. Okay, so for the 2 ebooks I read, we're gonna breeze through them because I finished the Shatter Me series. So I read the last book 6 and the novella after it, 6.5, and I don't know what they're called. I think it was like Imagine Me and Leave Me. Shatter Me, if you don't know, which if you've ever watched a video before, you should, because I've been reading this series this year. I read all 11 of them in 2024. It's about this girl named Juliet who has this ability where if you touch her or she touches you, you die. It's a dystopian world with like a revolution happening. And I was never really a big fan of this series. Even when I started it, I thought it's always been mid for me, but I was interested enough that I was looking forward to reading more of them, that they kept my attention and I wanted to know what was going to happen next. But these last 2 books were bad. I did not like them. And I definitely think the series went downhill after the original trilogy. Like the original trilogy and the accompanying novellas, I think were decent. It's when she decided to keep writing more, I think, is when it went downhill and it got extremely just out there, unbelievable. You don't really care what's happening because like, what do you mean this is happening? Like, I don't know. It was just really hard to keep reading, but like in my head, I was like, I need to finish this series. And the last 2 books were quite hard to get through. I mean, I read them quickly because it's like a YA series, but I just didn't like it. I guess the series ended okay, but especially the last novella, I despise. The whole point of the novella is fan service. It does not do anything to further the plot of the series. It is only fan service for the main relationship in the book. And I guess if I liked that couple, I would have liked that book. And I did like that couple at one point. There was a time in the middle of the series where I was rooting for them and I liked them together. And I just did not like them by the end of the series. It's not that I didn't want them to be together, I just didn't care. And so having a whole novella about them as a couple was driving me insane. I did not care for it. It felt just like so pointless. Even if you, like, I'm not gonna give away the plot, but even if you knew the plot, it could have been better than it was, and it wasn't. Like, oh my god. And I read reviews. Most people agree with me. It was also like, she just like forgot stuff she wrote about her characters. Like in one of the earlier books, Warner loves dogs, and in this book, he hates dogs. What do you mean? What do you mean he went from loving dogs to being like, what is that thing? Get it away from me. Like, what? I don't know. But I finished the series and I'm done with it, and I'm glad to be done with it. I gave most of the books 3 or 3.5 stars. These are under 3. Anyway, moving on. And then I read 6 audiobooks. I read 6, but I don't remember. I read 2 series and then 1 other book. So, solo book I read was that I wanted to reread Iron Flame before Onyx Storm came out in January, which is so soon. So if you don't know, this is a sequel to A Fourth Wing, which took the world by storm last year. And this is a fantasy series about this girl named Violet who goes to a dragon riding school where she has to go through training and go through schooling to become a dragon rider and be part of their, like, army. But there's like a lot happening because there's like, there's like a rebellion and just like so much happens. And because of everything that happened in this book, I wanted a refresher before going into the 3rd one. So I can't say much about what this one specifically is about because it gives away a lot that happens in the first one. But a lot of people didn't really like Iron Flame. I actually have a vlog where I read this book when it came out, but I liked it because Fourth Wing was one of the books that was starting to get me back into fantasy, and so I loved being back in the world with the characters, and I loved the found family, and I just really wanted more of the characters and more of the dragons. And even though like maybe the plot wasn't as good in this one, I still enjoyed it because I wanted that, like I wanted those characters. I personally don't think the plot was bad in this one. I can understand why people didn't like it, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people said it was. The ending had me shook, and it still has me shook, and I'm waiting for the next book, which is very, very soon, so I'm very excited to read it. And this was a nice refresher, and knowing a reveal that happens near the end of the book and being able to reread this book and be like, oh my god, I see it now. Yeah. So yeah, that was just a reread in preparation for the next book. I also reread The Hunger Games. I actually only read the series twice this year, so like that is good for me. Normally I read it 3 or 4 times. I love The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is a YA dystopian book that talks about our real world society, and is so good. It is so good. I am a broken record. If you haven't read it since you were a child, please read it again. But yeah, I wanted to get one more reread in before the end of the year, so I did that via audiobook. And then the last 2 books I read of the year, I read a Hunger Games sandwich between these 2 books, but whatever. They're part of a series, which is the Me Before You series by Jojo Moyes, I think. I have some of the books on my shelf. Yeah, so I read Me Before You in November, and it's one of the most heartbreakingly beautiful books I have ever read. I sobbed at the end of that book. These were a lot less sad. But basically, Me Before You is about this girl named Louisa? She goes by Lou in most of the book. I think her name's Louisa. Anyway, Lou needs a job, and she takes up, it's full-time hours, but it's only for a few months. A temporary job. Being like not a caregiver, but just like I don't know the word. There's this man named Will. He's paraplegic, or quadriplegic, and his parents wanted to hire someone to keep him company, like maybe help feed him, do light cleaning around the house, just kind of be there to spend time with him. And so the book is about Lou and her life, but also getting to know Will and their relationship. And it is so raw and so beautiful and so heartbreaking. Please look up trigger warnings for this book. There are 2 major things that are trigger warnings in this book, so please look those up. So this is the 2 books that come after it, which is After You and Still Me, which just follows Lou when she's no longer working for Will. Yeah. So she is going through a lot, and it follows her moving on and finding herself and finding out who she can be. And I have chill bumps thinking about it because I really love the way the author wrote these books, and they're so real. Like, I feel like I know Lou. She feels like a real person to me. And it just has every part of life in it. Like, there's so many awkward scenes where you will literally cringe while reading it, but that's life. And she is so special, and I want the world for her. And I was so happy to see her grow as a person and find out who she is and find out all she can accomplish. It was so beautiful. It was a very, very great trilogy. I think the storyline of the first book is my favorite, even though it was really sad. But I loved seeing her grow throughout all three, and I like it as a series as a whole. I really loved it. Very heartfelt. Like, I didn't sob at the other two books, but I did have moments of tearing up for the other two books because of how well I think I could see myself a little bit in Lou. I wouldn't say I'm like too much like her, but just like seeing her grow as a person, I teared up. Anyway, very, very great series. I look forward to reading more books by this author. So I think those are all the books that I read in December, the last month of 2024. Overall, I liked my reads. No, that's a lie. I think I only liked half of them. Whatever. It could be worse. At least I read 11 books. That's good, because I was slumping, for a few months. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. In my head, I'm just thinking about my yearly wrap up that I'm about to film, and I'm looking forward to that. So I don't know what to say for this video. But yeah, thank you for watching. Maybe I'll watch more of my videos. I do have a lot that I'm planning on filming this week for the next month and a half or 2 months, depending on when I get to edit them. So I'm looking forward to those, and maybe you can watch them. And yeah, bye!